Beyond the Standard, a Grow NJ Kids Technical Assistance Center podcast from Prevent Child Abuse, New Jersey. I'm Maria Hagan.
I'm Amanda Sloan.
Thank you all for being here with us today. Amanda and I are excited to talk about an important topic that relates to classroom staff directly, the Environmental Rating Scale, or the ERS for short.
I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, but I first wanted to spend a little time going over what the ERS actually is. I know we spend so much time coaching on the tool, so I think it would be helpful for our listeners to better understand what it is exactly.
That's a great point, Amanda. We as educators hear these terms tossed around, but how many of us really understand what it is or why it's important?
The ERS is a research-based tool that stands for Environment Rating Scale. It's a set of observational assessments used to measure the quality of early childhood programs. There are three different ERS tools that we focus on. So you have ITERS, which is for infant and toddler classes. There's ECHRS, so that focuses on preschool. And then you have FICRS, which is for family childcare programs.
And each of the tools looks at specific items in the classroom as they are relevant to each age group and each unique environment.
So the ERS assesses several items that relate to the classroom environment, such as space and furnishings, personal care routines, language and literacy, activities, interactions, and also looks at your program structure.
And I think to get a better understanding of this, maybe we should focus on one of these areas, for example, space and
We
furnishings.
can talk about that one for sure. So space and furnishings looks at several aspects of the classroom. One of those is indoor space. So, is your class big enough for your children to move around and play? Is it organized into different areas for different activities?
So how the space functions overall.
Exactly. Another area is furniture. Are there comfy chairs and tables for children to eat and play and learn? And are they able to sit at them with their elbows on the table and their feet touching the floor? Are the toys and materials easy to reach and use?
So how the furniture in the room impacts the children's experiences.
Mhm. Another area that it looks like is room arrangement. So, is your room set up to encourage learning and play? Are there designated areas for quiet activities, for active play, and creative expression?
And how the room is laid out or optimized for children's learning and supervision.
Very much so. Another area is space for privacy. We know that the classroom is often it's just chaotic. There's a lot of noise happening. So, is there a space designed for the children to escape the chaos of the class and to play and work alone, or maybe with just one other child? Do you have a space that allows them to relax within your room?
Children need a place where they can regain their inner calm.
Yes, they do. So the next area we'll talk about real quick is child-related displays. It's looking at, are there pictures of the children in your class? Do you have their artwork displayed, especially like their individualized artwork? Do you have other things that make the space feel inviting and personal?
So how the display enhances children's learning. After all, we want the class to look nice, but it should also be meaningful for the children. And, the ERS isn't just about the materials in the room, but how it's all put together to create a safe, stimulating, and fun environment for young children.
Exactly. The materials and design of the classroom are really important, but equally important is how the teachers use the materials with the children and use them for learning opportunities.
The ERS really is an important tool that can help classroom staff to ensure their classroom is a high quality environment for children to grow and learn. And another aspect that is equally important when talking about the ERS is coaching.
Coaching is such an important part of incorporating the ERS in your classroom. Usually, the first step we take as coaches is to look at the room arrangement and start there with our guidance and support.
Now, Amanda, you and I both have firsthand experience in the classroom, both in private settings and in the public school system.
Yeah, we've both been where you are now, in a classroom with administrators and directors who told us what had to be done. And because of our experience, we both know how hard it can be when a person, either from within your school or outside of it, like a coach, comes into your classroom.
It can sometimes feel like you're losing a say over what happens in your class or how your classroom is run, but it doesn't have to be that way.
In our current roles, Maria and I are both working as coaches. Personally, one of my roles as a coach is to go into classrooms and coach teachers directly on the ERS. And as a coach, I view my role as someone who is there to provide guidance, to help in problem solving, and just to overall support and help teachers feel more confident in their skills.
Our job as coaches is not to tell teachers what to do. It's our job to mentor and guide in what is best practice for the classroom.
Exactly. And I think you and I also have a unique perspective on working with a coach since we both have experience in the classroom.
When I was in the classroom, I sometimes felt like my coach was there to point out what was wrong with my class. But once I was able to reflect and kind of change that viewpoint, I realized that at the end of the day, my coach just wanted to help me be the best possible teacher that I could be.
Do you have like a personal example related to the ERS of how you were able to change this viewpoint for yourself?
I do actually. I was a few years into my teaching career and I had been in the same classroom for a few years. And then I received that dreaded notification. Had to switch rooms. We've all been there, and that change can sometimes feel a little frustrating.
Yes, you have to move all of your stuff over, but it's definitely happened to, I think, all of us at some point.
That is so true, Amanda. And so when I moved into my new classroom, I had set up my interest areas to fit my new space. I had all my materials set up and I was feeling pretty good about how my room was arranged. But then a few days before the beginning of classes, my coach came in and she made some suggestions on how I should rearrange my room.
How did you feel about those changes?
Well, honestly, at first I was a little annoyed. I had put so much work in to rearrange this room, and now I felt like somebody was coming in telling me to change things.
Well, what did you end up doing?
So I ended up sitting down with my coach and I asked her to explain to me why the changes she was suggesting were necessary. I wanted to ensure that my voice was heard while also being a coachable person. My coach was able to explain to me that some of the interest areas were not arranged for their best potential. So, for example, she was suggesting that I move the music area a little farther away from the library area to ensure that the quiet area stayed far away from like those busier places.
Oh, that was a great suggestion. But that's so great that you were able to advocate for yourself.
It was really important for me that my coach understood my needs and that I got the clarification as to why those changes were necessary. What I ended up learning was that when a coach makes a suggestion, they're giving you suggestions based on their experience and understanding of best practice. My coach wasn't telling me the exact spot in the classroom where my interest areas should be to take away my control, but rather she was giving me space to reflect on how my new classroom was going to run. In the end, we worked together to change the layout of the room that ultimately ended up working well for me and my students.
That is a really great example of how a teacher can work with a coach and collaborate with them to ensure that both parties feel heard and are building that relationship.
The situation really helped me to realize that although I had a lot of experience and I brought a lot to the table, I still had room to grow and reflect. I was kind of initially defensive about the changes that my coach was suggesting.
I think it's hard for anybody, no matter the role they have or the years of experience they have. It's just hard to get feedback where changes are suggested. I think that they sometimes can just really feel personal.
But it's really important to remember that a coach's job is not to judge, but to guide.
When someone comes in to coach your class, they are working straight from the ERS guidance. So a coach coming in is not going to give guidance just based on their personal beliefs or how they're feeling that day. They are using a research-based tool to offer these suggestions. We really genuinely are there to support you on this journey to improved quality.
And we as coaches also recognize that it can be difficult to look inward and to think about what you can do better in your teaching practice. But, remember that being open to coaching and reflection does not mean that you're failing or doing something wrong. It just means that you're open to growth. There's a really great quote by Maya Angelou. She once said, "Do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better."
And teachers are the heart of early childhood education. And we as coaches, we want you to feel supported in everything that you do in your classroom. And at the end of the day, receiving coaching on the ERS will lead to better teaching practices, which in turn leads to a better learning experience for the children in your class, which is the ultimate goal of all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining Amanda and I on this episode of Beyond the Standard. We hope that you found it useful and that it will help you to reflect on the ERS in your classroom.
See you all next time.
Bye.